When Nando v. Movies announced the One Villainous Scene project several months ago, there was one villain more than any that I really wanted to see. It was that ultra-powerful, morally heinous, yet self-justifying purple man who believes the completion of his goals to be inevitable. That villain, of course, being Kilgrave.
Surprise!
Under any clip of him, you will see people calling him one of the best Marvel villains, and yet there are almost no videos about him. There are many, many academic and formal essays about this show, the social themes, analyzing his characters from a political perspective. Overall, very interesting stuff that you should check out, links in the description. But I feel the appreciation of this villain from a character perspective has mostly been reserved to YouTube comments and a few scattered Tumblr posts. So I have finally gotten off my lazy ass and started the YouTube channel I've been theoretically writing scripts for the past 4 years. So thank you, Nando. And bear with me as we delve into One Villainous Scene.
We're inevitable.
Kilgrave, also known in the comics as Purple Man, was the Season 1 villain from Netflix's Jessica Jones. For anyone who hasn't seen the show, I'm gonna spoil the whole season, but Kilgrave, born Kevin Thompson, underwent torturous experimentation by his parents, which eventually resulted in him gaining mind control abilities. He emits a virus that bends people's willpower to obey every word he says, and this does mean every word. If he says put a bullet in your head, you will obsess over doing so until you get a bullet in your head. Cut your heart out, smile, go screw yourself, intentional or no. Every command he gives is a command that must be obeyed. What I'm basically saying is, the MCU should be grateful Kilgrave is such a self-focused man. There are a lot of interesting scenes to choose from, but I've decided to go with the scene where Jessica and Kilgrave finally reunite, where he holds the entire police station hostage, also he can profess his eternal, undying love for her. But to discuss that, because it's been a while since this show first aired, I feel the need to first explain literally everything that comes before that.
Like you, this power was forced upon me. I thought you, of all people, would understand.
As his parents explain, the extensive experiments they ran him through were simply their best attempts to cure him of a neurodegenerative disease that would have killed him before he turned 12. Which, hey, goal achieved! No dead child! Just a child they wish was dead.
I wanted to kill you.
It's interesting, though, because when Kilgrave explains it, he claims he underwent this torture because his parents were bent on turning him into a freak. Now, we could have been lying, but based on his confrontation with them later on, we could take a good guess that that's genuinely what he thought was going on, or at least how he remembers it. Even if they claimed they loved him, he didn't feel the affection. He just felt the constant burning of elective surgeries, drowned by commands to quiet down and suck it up. So when he suddenly gains these powers of persuasion, the first thing he does is make his parents stop. He inevitably and very quickly becomes that kid who always gets his way, because literally no one can tell him no. And like any 10-year-old, he throws tantrums. But given, everything, his tantrums become intensely violent. His parents eventually dash out on him, fearing for their safety and leaving their 10-year-old Kevin to fend on his own. And at this age, the only thing he can think to do to survive is to use his powers to force people to help him. So what are you left with? You're left with a kid who from a young age learns to rely on power and to view people as tools. He never learns how to connect and interact with people, or even how they think and behave. He never learns empathy, and he especially doesn't learn consent. What he does learn is entitlement. He can and will get everything he wants. He learns no one is more powerful than him, and that life would be infinitely worse if it were any other way. But as they say, it's lonely at the top. Unfortunately for Jessica, she meets Kilgrave by happenstance. After only recently deciding to use her powers to help people, Kilgrave comes across her fighting off some muggers.
And underneath it, all the power. Just like me.
From the get-go, power becomes a major driver in their relationship, not only in him maintaining power over her by keeping her under his control from the moment he meets her, but as the main reason he's interested in her at all. And this is maintained even well after she leaves. We see it when he admits to feeling exhilarated at the idea of her having power over him, which... We see it when he's dismayed that Hope can't jump as high as Jessica, and when he assumes power is why Jessica chose Luke Cage over him.
Did you think he was more powerful than me? With his unbreakable skin, is that why you desired him?
Powerful man is attracted to power, who could have guessed? But from that point forward, he essentially makes her... his. A one-sided connection forms where he sees her as his loving girlfriend and she sees him as her abductor and grapeist, if you know what I mean. which is what he is. But from the outside, he doesn't see how tormented and invaded she feels. All he sees is her smiling when he tells her to, and giving him the affection he's been craving since childhood. And wouldn't it be nice if he could convince himself that affection was real? So he waits 12 hours for his command to wear off, and in the 18 seconds before he gives another order, she doesn't leave. Of course, this is because she was contemplating suicide and didn't have time to clear her head enough to make the jump, but all he needs to remember is she didn't leave. He's still got her. Jump forward some vague amount of time to the day he has her kill Reva Connors. After the blow, Jessica becomes immune to his powers, disobeys, and walks away, leaving him to get hit by a That was a coincidence, actually. But he survives, and Jessica has now become all that much more peculiar to him. She is now the first person he's ever wanted that walked away, and the one person he can't control.
You made me feel something I'd never felt before. Yearning. I actually missed you.
Now, what is love? I can't say. But to him, that might just be what it feels like.
We can work out the rest.
Oh, please. I am new to love, but I know what it looks like. I do watch television.
This scene occurs near the end of Season 1, Episode 7. So, backstory and past with Jessica now all summarized. Let's go through everything that happens in the show up to this point.
Jessica takes a case from Mr. and Mrs. Slotman to find their missing daughter Hope, who was taken by Kilgrave. Jessica finds Hope and tries to help her and her parents get away, but before they can get the chance, Hope kills her parents by Kilgrave's command. Now Jessica needs to prove Kilgrave's existence to get Hope out of her murder charges. Tristan solves Kilgrave on air and he sends Officer Simpson to go kill her. Jessica stops him. We learned he's been stalking her and using her neighbor Malcolm to do it. He eventually breaks into Jessica's apartment while she's not there and kills her other neighbor Ruben. Sick of people getting hurt, Jessica decides to get herself locked in Supermax to make Kilgrave come after her, where he'd have to use his powers on security tape. Everyone around her is like, that's a dumbass plan, but she rips Ruben's head off and shows up at the precinct anyway. Everyone involved is confused why she wants to go to Supermax instead of jail, but after fucking shit up, Detective Clemens is finally like, oh, maybe she should go to Supermax. When another officer comes in to tell her she's free to go, and
Here we are. This scene does a lot to set up what is to come for this character, as well as to unveil his worldview and motivations. So it might get a bit tedious, but I want to go moment by moment. Jessica and Clemens exit the interrogation room to find the entire station held at gunpoint. After a moment of confusion, an officer aims a weapon at Clemens, while Jessica is kept free. Before we even see him, we know Kilgrave is here. Not only does this pose an immediate threat, but it's also the perfect conflict to set against a character like Jessica, whose main internal struggle has revolved around not wanting to be a hero, and not wanting to see any more lives at risk. This scene is also the first time Kilgrave and Jessica speak face-to-face since the bus incident, and seeing him up close and personal again was always going to be a jarring moment for her. So when Kilgrave announces himself in such a casual tone...
Oh, everyone, calm down. You're killing the mood.
We can already feel the mixed vibes we're about to get from him.
Jessica. I'm not surprised to see me. You had to know I'd come for you. Not this fast. I will admit to keeping eyes on you. Spies are easy to come by. For me.
In this moment, we are harshly reminded how difficult it's going to be to get the upper hand on this guy. Everyone told Jessica that relying on him coming after her in Supermax was a long shot, without realizing he wasn't going to let her get there in the first place. This was a plan only 3-ish people knew ahead of time, yet he still figured it out. He was already 2 steps ahead, and the extent of his stalking is apparently a lot bigger than we thought it was.
Do whatever you're going to do to me, but let them go.
I have to protect myself, so.
Then control me, not them.
I have absolutely no intention of controlling you. I want you to act on your own accord.
Act how? Suicide? Is that why you've been torturing me?
Oh my God. Jessica, I knew you were insecure. That's just sad. I'm not torturing you. Why would I? I love you.
Alright, so there's a lot to unpack there, and we'll come back to it later, but I want to draw attention to that astonishment. The fact that he's so set back by her assumptions illustrates how incredibly out of touch he is with how real people think. And now he's trying to speak gently in this misguided profession of love with guns still in the air. It's that subtle touch to add some early seeds of depth to his character, without relinquishing any of the edge from the scene.
That I'm the only one who matches you, challenges you, will do anything for you.
That word choice, matches, challenges, gives the impression that he views this all as a game, perhaps with her as both challenger and prize. He'll do anything for you, except let the hostages go, obviously.
This is a sick joke. You have killed innocent people.
Oh, well, that milquetoast little man boy, he interrupted me while I was leaving you a present, which apparently you didn't even find. Come on! You cannot pretend he didn't irritate you too. I wanted to slap him after 30 seconds.
This line is the beginning of a trend, of him justifying his actions with weak excuses, but genuinely believing he did nothing wrong. In later scenes, he goes for a different strategy, insisting he hasn't killed anyone at all.
I've never killed anyone.
I didn't kill your silly wife. I've never killed anyone.
You use your powers to compel murder.
Oh, tomato.
He also outright rejects the idea that he could be called evil. The reason he killed Ruben, made Ruben kill himself, was because he was feeling possessive. Ruben said he loved Jessica, so Kilgrave killed Ruben. But he knows that's a bad look, and he doesn't want to be viewed as the bad guy. He wants to be the strong, shining heartthrob who wins the girl in the end. So,
I know. I realize this will take time, but I'm going to prove it to you.
his proof, as it turns out, is her childhood home, that he had restored to match almost exactly how it was left before her family's fatal accident. Although it's essentially another invasion on Jessica's life, he presents it as a grand romantic gesture straight out of television. I mean, shit, he even admits that's his reference for love later in this scene.
I have new to love, but I know what it looks like. I do watch television.
Just like he thought putting her up in nice hotels and fancy restaurants might make it okay for him to command her to sleep with him, he thinks grand displays can convince her to forgive the harm he's done. He thinks things make up for abuse. Yet, when these gestures and speeches don't go as well as they do in the movies...
Who's that?
Whose phone is that?
Next person whose phone rings has to eat it!
he throws a fit.
I am trying to profess eternal love here, people!
I'll come with you.
To protect them, not out of choice.
Now, this is an interesting note, because at this point in the narrative, he knows, but we don't know, and Jessica doesn't know, that we might suspect, but really he doesn't know, but he does have reason to believe that he couldn't control Jessica anymore, even if he wanted to. So the question stands, does he really want her to act on her own accord, or does he just want to get her back without her figuring out she's immune to him? I would argue, yes, to both. He does genuinely think she might come back to accept him. He does believe those 18 seconds where she didn't jump were proof that she did want to be with him.
And you stayed with me. With me, because you wanted to. You can't tell me you don't remember.
He doesn't seem to remember the bit where he tried to hurt her afterwards, or the fact that she tried to jump at all.
What revisionist bullshit! I know your face. I saw you.
You saw what you wanted to see.
I remember.
I remember.
You wanted to stay with me. Admit it.
You admit this.
So, he does want her to come willingly, and even doubles down by acknowledging that he's aware she won't come on her own while he's got everyone at gunpoint. But he had to threaten everyone for his own protection, so go home, find his present, and come see him later when you won't have to save anyone. But when he later threatens the staff at her house, is that protecting himself, or is that to control her behavior? This is another example of what he says he wants likely not being as true as he thinks it is. I believe he does want her trust, and he does want her affection, but at the end of the day, she's still the prize, and he'd rather win dirty than lose fair.
You've never loved anyone in your repulsive life.
Do not presume to know! Before I met you, I got everything I wanted. And I didn't realize how unsatisfactory that was until you left me to die. You were the first person I ever wanted that walked away from me. I actually missed you.
You've got me.
No, I don't. I'm hoping you'll choose me just like I've chosen you. I believe you will figure out the same thing I did, that we're inevitable.
And here's his Thanos moment. The good news is he can at least register she doesn't love him, even if he'll take any other slightly nice moment from her as reason to believe she has feelings.
You have feelings for me. If you didn't, I'd be dead.
You saved my life. You do care for me.
But he does genuinely believe that she will love him. He can't comprehend that he could not get something that he wants, because how could the universe allow such a thing? They're inevitable. Inevitable really is the perfect word to use on the writer's part for the same reason it works so well with Thanos. The amount of entitlement and self-importance required to say it and believe it is something only a villain could possess. To round out his I love you with a statement like that is also a sure way to indicate this man is going to be persistent.
It all gone?
Almost done.
Can't erase memories, but I can erase security footage.
And that's it. She came here to prove Kilgrave exists, and it seems like she should have done it. He himself showed up and used his powers on the entire police force, including the detective in charge of Hope's case. But he's still gonna get away with it. He erases the physical evidence and tells the officers to think this was a joke. Everyone saw him, but Jessica still can't prove he's real. That is the mark of a formidable foe. So at least in the context of superhero shows, we don't see a lot of supervillains professing their undying love to the heroes at the midpoint of the story. Usually we don't see it at all, but we especially don't often see it as the main motivation for all the evil shit they do. So this scene brings up two major questions. One, is it even possible for him to win her back? Spoiler, he doesn't, obviously, but was there ever any route for him to earn her trust again, for her to actually ever come to love him? And two, does he really love her? Or does he love controlling her? I know this isn't really about the One Villainous Scene anymore, but it is my video. So, we're digging in anyway. Sorry.
Oh, you want me to do the hero thing?
Yep.
Short answer? No. But it is a wild world. And he seems to believe she could at least forgive him, so for the sake of meeting his mindset, let's entertain the idea that if he apologized, used his powers only for good, and consistently proved himself to be a changed person, then she could come to trust him and from there potentially feel something resembling love. The question now is, was he ever actually willing to do any of that? So, it's true. He does have a tragic backstory. He was tortured from a young age, then cursed too young with powers no kid could handle. All things considered, you could totally see how he'd end up the way he is. And he himself doesn't think he's bad at heart.
But you know, he doesn't see himself as a villain, but he doesn't. He's just within his world of acquiescence. He can't appreciate that he's doing terrible things to people.
And he has some moments that make you think, oh, well, that's kind of nice. He buys her childhood home without using his powers, making sure the current homeowner is happy with their deal. When Jessica's neighbor says some rude stuff to her, he gets her to stop without hurting her, which even Jessica admits is kind of satisfying. He's also played by David Tennant, so listen. None of that. There are moments that make you not fully hate the guy for a moment. So when we find out he wasn't taught morality as a child, even Jessica thinks, well, maybe his powers could be used for good. Maybe we could get a redemption arc out of this guy. So she takes him to go play hero to save a family from their trigger-happy father. And at first, he's still very ooh, about the whole thing, but he saves the day. And he's like, wow, I did it. And even the audience is like, oh, wow, maybe we'll get a hero out of him yet. But he's still a little off about it. He talks about the experience in the context of earning praise or making up for all the people he's hurt. Very much not the reason he should be helping people. And then he brings up a very good point.
That man almost blew his brains out, which I genuinely thought was the right thing to do. I can't be a hero without you.
Oh my God. You're right.
This is a decision moment for Jessica. We've been discussing her mostly in relation to Kilgrave's thoughts, but let's talk about the actual theme of the show for a minute. Kilgrave is the reason Jessica gave up superheroing in the first place. Her trying to be a hero is what led to him taking her, so after she escaped, she hung up the metaphorical cape. When she realizes it was Kilgrave who took Hope in episode 1, her first instinct is to run far, far away, and it takes a whole lot of pondering and agonizing for her to ultimately decide to stay and save her. Throughout the whole show, even after season 1, Jessica remains locked in a battle with herself about whether or not she can, could, or should be a hero, and what it even means to be one in the first place. Even Kilgrave pinpoints that.
Despite her several problems, she still hopes that at her core she might just be a hero.
And most of all, she constantly has to prove to herself that no, despite them both being gifted, she's not like Kilgrave. But now, she has the sudden opportunity to make him more like her, to make him a hero. But who's to say he'll stick with it? Do I think it would have been interesting to see them stick as a team? Yes. But besides the fact that she'd have to spend every day with the guy who gave her PTSD, what does he follow this moment up with?
Hey, what are you doing?
I need to go for a walk alone.
Why? I thought this is what you wanted.
I need to think. It's just a walk.
I hope so. I don't think Alva and Laurent could survive the letdown.
More threats. Just another way to force her to stay. And that neighbor he let go earlier? Nah, he blew her up. And the fact of the matter is, he raped her. Over and over. And if he really wanted to change, he would step back and examine himself when he gets called out. Instead, he hides behind his childhood.
She wants you to pay for what you did to her.
I treated her better than anyone ever has.
Yes, he had a rough upbringing that skewed the way he understands people, but he wasn't helpless. He could have waited longer than 18 seconds to see if she'd leave. He could have decided before she became immune to him to not control her at all, or at the very least, he could have asked if she wanted any of this before he told her to. If he asks, she will tell the truth. He can make her tell the truth. There's no questions there. He asked how he was supposed to know, but if he really wanted to know, he would have found a way. But time and time again, he doesn't want to know. The least he could do is apologize, but he keeps making excuses.
Let's just new Jess. We were happy. Whatever you think I did to hurt you, I'm sorry.
He is powerless. He's playing us.
Feels good, doesn't it? Being in control.
I would have liked to see him change. Trust me, I would have. But I don't think he'd do it. Maybe in another timeline. Maybe there would have been another chance when he apologized to his mom before she stabbed him. I'm not sure. Even then, there's no reason to expect Jessica to ever feel comfortable around him again, and there's no reason she should ever have to forgive him, change or no. And after his mom literally stabs him in the back, I think he realizes this. He can't earn Jessica back. He can only take her.
Or maybe I'll just kill her.
Something that might feel obvious to us, but not so clear to him, is that if he did fall in love with her, he didn't fall in love with her. He didn't know her. He knew things about her, but he didn't know her real personality. He knew the person he told her to be.
You'll love it.
I will love it.
I've had Chef Bouchard prepare your favorite meal, pasta amatriciana.
That's your favorite meal. Now it makes me nauseous.
And when she exhibits her less smiley, less submissive attitude, at first you might act impressed by it.
Glass houses, asshole.
Oh God, I'll miss that.
But given enough time, he gets pretty pissed, doesn't he?
You really are a little anal crumpet. Do not presume to know! Never realized you were such a bitch.
And after she quote-unquote betrays him, he flips intentions fast. He went from I love you to I'll enjoy watching you die in the span of, what, a week, tops? That's pretty solid evidence that he doesn't feel as affectionately towards her as he says he does. And yet, there's this lingering feeling that he doesn't really want her dead. Don't get me wrong, he tries his damn best, but there is always this edge of internal conflict. For example,
Dear God, I'd do anything to see the look on her face when she realizes she's helpless. I'd make her want me. Then reject her, devastate her over and over and over until she wants to die. No, I won't give her that either. She'd wither away like someone dying of thirst or starvation. Or maybe I'll just kill her.
he doesn't seem confident in any of his options. The clearest indication of what he actually wants, therefore, must come when he actually thinks he's won. In the final episode, which I feel comfortable spoiling because we're this far, it looks like he might have gotten strong enough to control her again, but it's not clear. So he threatens to take Trish to hurt Jessica through her sister until he realizes she might not be faking.
Oh God, it's true, isn't it? Oh my God. It's finally over. You're mine now.
No more fighting. No more of these ugly displays. You'll be with me now.
Look, after a while, however long it takes, I know you will feel what I feel.
It is telling that after all this, he still thinks she'll come around. That he still wants her to. It's sad, really, and it's gross to say, but the overly sympathetic part of me is always just a little bit relieved for him in this moment. Oh, I feel really gross saying that. Why audiences find themselves unconsciously rooting for horrible people like this is the topic for another video, but I can't deny that bliss on his face, so overjoyed for a second, makes my naive brain think, isn't it so nice to see this lonely guy so happy? But only for a second. Less than a second, because he doesn't deserve it. He's saying this all after threatening to rape her sister, and in a moment that implies he'd be excited to rape Jessica herself again. It's disgusting that even if he supposedly wants her real love, he'll settle so quickly for manipulation and control. But still, I do think it is uncharitable to claim his affection comes only from a desire for control. That is the driving force behind every action he takes, yes, but where his interest in her started was in meeting another super. She made him feel less alone. He expresses feeling like he can relate to her, like he feels like they're the same. He really, really wants to be with her. So let me put it this way. He is in love with Jessica as much as Joe from You is in love with every random girl he stalks and creates fantasies about. He loves the idea of her. You can make an argument for where those lines blur, but let's be practical. All of his desires come down to him. She can be happy only in ways that make him happy. The source of his love isn't affection, it's the desire for it, and more so the deep-seated belief that he deserves it. And that's not uncommon outside the Marvel Universe. This entitlement leads to murder, to rape, to even the casual demand for a pretty girl to smile. And he believes it so strongly that he'll blissfully believe lies, convinced of inevitable affection until the very end, when the facade just snaps. As disgusting and harrowing as this character can be, David Tennant brings a flair to Kilgrave that's incredibly captivating. And technically, now with the multiverse open, there are likely multiple timelines in which he does win, or is at the very least still alive. Supposedly, Disney is making a reboot of Jessica Jones, and well, if they keep him, I have no idea what they're going to do with Kilgrave. I would love to see more of him, I would, but I guess I just can't imagine how they can make him Disney-friendly and still hold as much weight, or how they can write as good of a plotline without rehashing what's already been done. I suppose it depends if they have him as a main villain, side villain, just allude to him, or cut him all together. I mean, Jessica Jones is a great character in her own right, and there are plenty of other great Alias stories to tell, but even in the comics, he altered her entire life's course. He forced his way into her life, and even in death, never fully left. In Season 2, we see him appear as hallucinations at a point where Jessica is at her most guilty. And of course, David Tennant makes him very fun and entertaining to watch. But it just goes to show that even after all this time, he still has a grip over her mind. Kilgrave and the trauma he put her through is such a major part of her past, it fucked her up permanently. It altered the course of her entire life. So even in death, he still continues to haunt her. Then in Season 3, in the very final scene of the entire show, when she's ready to leave everything behind and hop on a train to El Paso, she hears his voice one more time.
Jessica, you're right to give in. Give up. It's someone else's job now.
And she turns around, her chin up with a faint smile. She changes her mind, finally seeming to feel some comfort in the fact that even after all the shit she went through, she's at least beat him. She beat Kilgrave. She beat her abuser. You know, I didn't love Seasons 2 or 3. Like, they were fine, but the most fun parts of the season were just the Kilgrave scenes. But after rewatching Season 1 for the third time, I went and I watched just that last scene in the train station out of context. And I cried. You know, because nobody knows a giant world-conquering purple alien in real life. Like, Thanos had aspects of real mentalities, but he wasn't real. Meanwhile, Kilgrave's character is someone who, mind control aside, is real. I've seen many comments from people with PTSD similar to Jessica's who said they couldn't finish the show because they were having panic attacks when Kilgrave was on screen. His actions and attitude just so closely resembled that of their abusers they couldn't handle seeing it. He is a real-life villain. Because of that, for those of us who haven't been in Jessica's shoes, Kilgrave is a character who can make you feel gross for enjoying him and guilty for having some sense of sympathy for him. At least that's how he makes me feel. He is fun to watch. He is interesting. He is complex and tragic and compelling and worth making 30-minute videos about. But at the end of the day, despite all this potential, he is nothing but a psychotic, repulsive waste of a human being. And that is what makes him a great villain.
You're in here, but I won.